אז שלום לכולם, ערב טוב. שמי אביב ואני מארגון הבוגרים של הפקולטה להנדסה שנקרא שילובים. אני שמח מאוד לפתוח את הערב הזה שיוקדש לארגון מהנדסים ללא גבולות, או יותר נכון לסניף של מהנדסים ללא גבולות בפקולטה להנדסה אצלנו. לפני שנתחיל אני חייב להגיד לכם שהמפגש שלי, ההיכרות שלי עם מהנדסים ללא גבולות נעשתה בערך לפני כ3 שנים, וזה אחד מאותם הדברים שמיד כשרואים אותם אז מבינים שזה דבר נכון ושזה דבר חשוב ושזה דבר שלפחות אני הרגשתי שאני רוצה להיות חלק ממנו. אז נעשתה פה עבודה רבה מאוד על הקמת הסניף באוניברסיטת תל אביב. אני לא אפרט שמות, אתם תשמעו הכל בהמשך, אבל יש פה כמה סטודנטים נפלאים שעובדים על זה, ויש גם כמה מנחים שעוזרים להם בזה. ולפני שנתחיל אני אציין רק לבוגרי הפקולטה שאנחנו מחפשים עוד מנחים, מומחים בתחומי תוכן כמו קלינטק וסוגים אחרים של הנדסה. מי שמעוניין לתרום ולהצטרף כמובן מוזמן ליצור קשר, אנחנו נשמח מאוד. אז בואו נתחיל את הערב, נגיד כמה מילות ברכה ואחרי זה נעבור להרצאה המרכזית של הערב שתהיה על ידי פרופסור אמדאי מארצות הברית, שאותו תציג בהמשך דוקטור בלס. אז ראשון הדוברים בבקשה פרופסור רענן ריין, סגן נשיא האוניברסיטה.
Shalom, good evening. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to this conference of Engineers Without Borders. Tel Aviv University is a leading research institution, but at the same time, it's an institution which waves the flags of solidarity, pluralism, and tolerance. Students and faculty members here at Tel Aviv University are involved in a wide variety of activities with different sectors of the Israeli populations, underprivileged sectors of the Israeli population. This includes children of different ages, new immigrants, in recent years mostly Ethiopians, migrant workers, non-Jewish Israelis, and people who are discriminated on ethnic or gender basis. Within this framework of solidarity and social commitment, we enthusiastically welcome the new chapter of Engineers Without Borders established here at Tel Aviv University in late 2011. Led by Dr. Vered Blas and sponsored by our Faculty of Engineering, especially by the Dean, Professor Ehud Heyman. The activities of this group of volunteers contribute to better the life of different populations, Jews in Israel and abroad, Palestinians and Africans. Children and adults benefit from several projects promoted by this group. I've just looked at one of the new projects, which is still in the making, in the very initial stages, one which is focused on the northern regions of Tanzania, where the local children suffer from widespread poverty and malnutrition, as well as contained water. The Tel Aviv University chapter of Engineers Without Borders decided to become part of the solution to this problem. They plan to treat the groundwater and supply adequate drinking water to the population of several villages. This is a worthy project, and I hope that it can materialize, and soon, in collaboration with other units here at Tel Aviv University, such as the Development Studies program in our School of Government and the African Studies program in our Faculty of Humanities. So I would like to thank all the students and faculty members who are involved in these activities, especially in the branch of Engineers Without Borders, And I would like to thank the Faculty of Engineering, and especially the Dean, for sponsoring these activities. I would like to wish you an interesting conference, and to thank especially Professor Bernard Amadei, founder of this association in the United States. I apologize, but within a few minutes I'll have to go to another project, but I'm sure I'm going to miss a wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.
תודה רבה. כמו שאמרתי, לפני 3 שנים, כשהתחלנו עם כל הסיפור, אחד האנשים הראשונים שהלכנו אליהם כדי להציג להם את הנושא, היה פרופסור היימן, דיקן הפקולטה להנדסה, מטבע הדברים. ואני חייב לציין שהוא בחושיו אחדים הבין מיד את הפוטנציאל הגדול של מהנדסים ללא גבולות, ומאותו רגע הוא תומך נלהב של התוכנית, ואני קורא לך, אודי, בוא נשמח לשמוע את דבריך.
First of all, thank you, Avi, for taking a leading role from the שילובים point of view, from our Alumni Association point of view, in supporting this organization. So it is our pleasure to host here Professor Bernd Amadei, the founder of the international organization Engineers Without Borders, an organization that has been established only a few years ago and quickly grew up and became an important and active organ, in fact, in most leading universities worldwide. You will hear more about the activities of the EWB, Engineers Without Borders, and the vision behind it from Bernard. And you will hear also about the activities in Israel. I must say first in the Technion, but more recently also at Tel Aviv University. I'd like, however, to share with you briefly my impression, in fact fascination, about or from the activities of this organization in our faculty. The Tau branch of EWB has been established as a true bottom-up organization, and in fact it operates and managed in that fashion by the students and for the community. It is fueled by the student enthusiasm and to do and to fill their daily life with meaningful activities for the community. So I'd like to thank our students, first of all, Gil Shua and Olga, who were the first one to pick up the idea and really act in a bottom-up, as I mentioned previously, in a bottom-up fashion among the students to establish this organization. I'd like to thank Vered Blas for her activity, her support. I'd like to thank Avi. And we need your help, the help of our alumni. We need engineers to support, to provide some experience, the vision of experienced engineers. And beside that, I'd like only to thank Bernard for the vision. And I hope you'll have a nice atmosphere here. Thank you.
טוב, כמו שאמרנו, מהנדסים ללא גבולות זה בעיקר פרויקט של סטודנטים. יש גם בוגרים שעוזרים ויש גם תעשייה ששותפה, אבל זה בעיקר פרויקט של סטודנטים, והסטודנט הראשי במהנדסים ללא גבולות בסניף של אוניברסיטת תל אביב הוא גיל שואה, שהוא גם היושב ראש של הסניף. אני מזמין אותך גיל, אני נשמח מאוד לשמוע את דבריך.
Hello everybody. As a student, we all know how Hello everybody. As a student, we all know how tiring are the fluorescent lights, the walls, solving integrals, and the daily routine. You have been waiting a long time to see what more you are capable of, and if what you study translated to something significant. Well, this is why we decided to bring Engineers Without Borders chapter straight to you. It is always convenient to say, I don't have the time or I lack the knowledge. Today, you will see how to utilize your capabilities into changing people's lives. Our chapter welcomes all of you from vast range of specialties. You're in the prestigious Tel Aviv University, where all the greatest minds are gathered and willing to assist you. Where Professor Ayman, where Professor Ullman, where Professor Kribus, Dr. Blas, and many more. We have the industry professionals to guide you, and the only thing that is missing is you're willing to put your abilities into actual use and the knowledge from the theory to the field. I hope you will be inspired by Professor Amadei as I was, and see how it was and is still being done all around the world and now here. I am proud to be the president of EWB Tel Aviv University. Thank you very much.
טוב, עכשיו אני שמח מאוד להזמין את מי שהייתה באמת הרוח החיה מאחורי ההקמה של הסניף של מהנדסים ללא גבולות בישראל. מי שמנווטת לפעמים מאחורי הקלעים ולפעמים לפניהם, אבל בחוכמה ובנחישות את הפיתוח של הארגון ואת ההתקדמות שלו. מי שהביא את כל הידע מארצות הברית, ומי שאני חושב בלעדיה הסניף הזה לא ברור אם הוא היה קיים. אז אני שמח להזמין את דוקטור ורד בלס לעשות את דבריו.
תודה אבי. לפני שאני מתחילה אני רוצה כמובן להודות לפרופסור ריין ולפרופסור איימן ולארגון שילובים ולגיל ולאולגה באמת על המאמץ המדהים שהם עושים מההתחלה. אני ככה בתור פעילה גם בארגון הישראלי, לא רק בתוך הסניף, אני יודעת כמה קשה להקים סניף וכמה קשה להתחיל את הפעילות ולקבל את התמיכה של הארגון, את התמיכה של האוניברסיטה בפעילות הזאת, וזה ממש ככה מחמם את הלב לראות איך התמיכה הזאת מגיעה ממש מההתחלה. וזה משהו שמאוד עוזר, ויושב פה מרק מהטכניון שחווה ככה את ההתחלה ויודע כמה זה קשה בהתחלה להשיג את התמיכה הזאת עד שדברים קורים ועד שפרויקטים קורים. אז תודה רבה על כל התמיכה הזאת, זה מאוד עוזר. מה שאני רוצה לעשות, אנחנו אחרי ההרצאה של ברנרד נדבר קצת על הפעילות של הסניף, של הארגון בארץ, של הסניף, קצת פרויקטים, נעשה את זה קצר אז אני לא ארחיב על זה עכשיו. מה שאני רוצה לעשות זה בעצם לעבור להציג את ברנרד, אז אני אעבור לאנגלית ברשותכם. ואני אציג את ברנרד ונעבור ישר להרצאה שלו. So Bernard, I was just telling them, thank you for all of the support and how important is it to have the institutional support from very beginning so it can really run well from the beginning. But I really want, this is my moment to tell you something actually, because I first met Bernard in 2005 when I was a master's student in UC Santa Barbara in California. I went to the EWB USA conference, all excited, and I heard Bernard lecturing, and I was like, whoa, like so much inspiration, so much vision, someone that had this amazing vision and made it, into practice, affecting so many people around the world. For me, it was really a great inspiration, and I actually didn't meet Bernard personally until a few years later. So, I knew him, but personally, I didn't meet him, I think, until 2008 or 2009. And we finally met, and Bernard is so instrumental also in helping us putting this regional cooperation of EWB in our region. He's very committed to that, and I can't express more how excited I am to have you finally here, in Tel Aviv University. I've been living in the US for many years, coming back here, being able to bring you here, to listen to you here. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your support and all of your help and mentorship and guidance to me personally and to the organization as it grows all around the world. And Bernard, it's a really tough, task to even introduce all of what he does during all these years. So, Bernard is a professor at University of Colorado at Boulder in the civil engineering department. This, I think, it's like the smallest thing. This is like the side thing today. So he leads a big center there for engineering for developing communities. He started this new program a few years ago. He got so many prizes. If you go on the website to see his bio, you will see a list of tens of prizes that he won for all of his great work. He is the founder of EWB USA, and if you think about it, it started in 2001 with Bernard and few students going to Belize, right, to start just one project. Okay, and from that, it grew to an organization which have more than 12,000 members, 400 projects, more than 300 chapters, just in 10 years. Huge mechanism, huge organization, the biggest from all of the EWB chapters internationally. So this is for me, Bernard, right, EWB USA, and I really hope you will enjoy as much as I enjoyed listening to him a few years ago. And thank you again so much, Bernard, for coming. You have a mic here, but if you want to move around, there is also a...
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Verret, for your kind introduction. But, working at the universities is very important because it pays the bills at the end of the month. Without that, I could not do the other crazy things that I'm doing in my life. So it's very important there. So thank you so much for your kind invitation, Dr. Blas. Thank you so much for your kind invitation, Dr. Hyman. And also, I want to thank the Alumni Association for hosting me tonight and for hosting this event. It means a lot to me. What I want to talk about this evening is to give you an overview of engineering, but within a different context, not really the context of addressing the needs of, say, 1 billion people on the planet, the rich people on the planet, but I would rather talk about engineering to address the needs of 4 to 5 billion people on the planet whose job is to try to stay alive by the end of the day. The past 50 years, we have seen an age of prosperity on our planet for about 1 to 2 billion people. People essentially in the Western world live longer. They do much better. They have jobs most of the time. They have better hygiene, better education. They live longer, and so on and so forth. So it's a success story at first, if you look at it that way. The problem, though, with that success story is that it has left behind some unintended social, psychological, and environmental consequences. Not everything went fine. When we talk about poverty, when we talk about environmental degradation, when we talk about pollution, when we look at reduced, essentially, diversity around the world, yes, we have created a technical wonder world, but we have also left behind a technical waste world that we should not be really proud about. So the next question is, well, if we have done that for 1 to 2 billion people on the planet, what kind of human development are we going to put together for the... It's not moving. Okay. For the other people, for the other 3, 4, 5 billion people, again, whose job is to try to stay alive by the end of the day. Are we going to follow the same model of development that we have followed over the past 50 years? And if not, what kind of development are we going to do? And what is the role of science and technology in addressing the needs of those 4 to 5 billion people? Are we going to do science and technology as usual, or are we going to come up with something new? After all, if everyone on the planet were to live like Americans, people have calculated that we need about 5 planets to provide the resources to everyone on the planet. Right now, to support our way of life on our planet, we need about 1.5 planets. It's going to be 2 planets by 2020, and it keeps on growing and growing and growing. So obviously our model of development that we have today, even though it has improved the life of people, is not necessarily very sustainable. We need to think about an alternative that will create individuals who have access to health, energy, food, water, sanitation, transportation, telecommunication, education, immunization. And that has been done at a grander scale. So what I want to talk about is engineering for the other 90%. We have done engineering for the 10% in the world's population. Now we're going to talk about engineering for the other 90%, and mostly science and technology for the other 90%. When I talk about science and technology for the other 90%, it sounds like, okay, let's do good for the planet, just let's do good for the planet. All those poor little kids in Africa, let's give them water and sanitation and so on and so forth. Put that aside for a minute. This slide that I collected from Drayton and Budinich in 2010, Mr. Drayton is the founder of the Ashoka Foundation in the world. They came up with a kind of the market value that is right now available in the low-income world. Just want to show you the market value that we have there. It's not just a bunch of, 10 people here, 100 people there, a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there. The market value to address the needs of the developing world has been estimated as about $202 billion in healthcare, $424 billion in low-cost housing, $553 billion in energy, and $36 trillion in agricultural products and food. That's the market value. That's the potential that is available there in terms of the role of science and technology in making the world a better place. So what I'm going to talk about is not just doing well, but it's doing good, doing well by doing good. How can we combine the two together? How can we bring economic development at the same time as we bring human development by lifting up people who make less than $1 a day? On our planet today, we have about 1 billion people who make less than $1 a day, 2 billion people who make less than $2 a day, and about 5 billion people who make less than $10 a day. $10 a day. That's not much, right? That's $3,650 per year. That's a large majority of people. So how do we do science and technology for the people who make $10 a day? How do we do science and technology for the people who make $1 a day? And that's what I want to address in my presentation today. So we're going to talk about human development. And the concept of human development compared to economic development is really focusing on people. It's creating an environment in which people can develop their full potential, wherever they are, from any gender they are, and lead productive, creative lives in agreement with their needs and interests. And when we talk about human development, the real wealth that we are looking at is about people. People are the real wealth of a nation. And I'm not saying that economic development is not important. I'm not an economist. But economic development cannot take place if you do not have human development. Human development is a condition that is sine qua non for economic development. One cannot take place without the other. And again, what I'm going to try to do is, in my presentation, emphasize the role of science and technology in human development. And a message that I want to convey to you is that addressing the needs of 4 to 5 billion people on our planet is no longer an option for us in science and technology and in engineering. It is an obligation. An obligation that is professional obligation as well as a moral obligation. The countries that this is the world divided according to the World Bank, and you know the World Bank has its own ways of doing things, and believe me, if you want to read, if you have problems in insomnia, read reports by the World Bank. They will put you to sleep immediately. But there's some good stuff that comes out of the World Bank as well. This picture shows how the world is divided, but essentially it's divided. Is that the pointer here? No, if I push that, I get ejected somewhere.
You can use a mouse.
Okay, that's a good point. You never know, right? I mean, if you touch the right button, then poof. It is. Yeah, you never know. You know, I don't want to declare some problem there. Okay, but if you look at the four, essentially, they divide into low income, lower middle income, upper middle income, and high income, and very high income. So I'm going to focus on those two groups here, low-income countries and lower middle-income countries. Again, my focus is on people who make less than $1 a day to $2 a day. Just want to give you the background. How did I get involved in this kind of work? As Bernd mentioned, in 2000, I was asked to go to Belize and visit a village shown over there. That village consists of about 250 people, Mayan Indian village, people living on less than $1 a day at the middle of the jungle. Belize is located south of Mexico. These are some of the local people. There are lots of children there. I'll give you an idea. When women have to give birth, essentially the local clinic is located about 45 minutes away by car. So in other words, most of the time they deliver on-site, or I was told they take essentially ride a bicycle and try to make it to the clinic. Very often, if there are no complications, the women give birth. If not, they die. What really changed my life is really that little girl. She's now a bigger girl by now. That little girl, I was told, in the village, she would carry water back and forth from the river to the village, back and forth all day long pretty much, and do other chores, like all the little girls in the world. And as a result, she could not go to school. So the problem was presented to me, and I say, hey, you are a civil engineer. Come up with a solution to that problem. I say, who, me? I have a PhD. I don't do that kind of work. Say, no, we don't care about your PhD. You better come up with a solution. So I scratch my head and say, well, that should not be too hard, pumping water from the river to the village, give them a pump, we can do that. Well, you know what? At the middle of the jungle, there's no pump and no electricity, no electric plug, and that community could not afford gasoline or diesel. So I had to come up with a solution that was a bit different. And what we looked after, or what we decided on using, was called a RAM pump, RAM pump. It's a 200-year-old technology developed in England that uses essentially the kinetic energy of the water. You need a potential energy somewhere. And we found that kinetic energy somewhere upstream in the form of a waterfall, about 7 feet, 2.1 meters, 2.2 meters of water flowing all year long. So we had 2.1 meters of potential energy that had potential to do something. That was the source of energy. Then after that, we had to scratch our head and convert that potential energy into pushing the water up 120 feet. I've never done something like that in my life. I talk to the students in the class, and they say, hey, cool, we're going to do this kind of stuff. We're going to go there and help those people. So, okay. So we looked into the pump, designed the pump. We welded the pump. We put the pump together. We tested it. And lo and behold, a year after, in 2001, we went there, raised $14,000, mostly for airline tickets, and installed the pump. When I started that project, students became really, really excited. You know, usually students are not excited when you teach statics or dynamics or strengths of materials, you know, or thermodynamics. It's not usually a topic of excitement, you know. And then I had students coming in my office all the time, and they say, hey, we want to do more of that stuff. We want to do more of that stuff. I ask them, why are you interested in that? They say, we want meaningful engineering education. They told me, we are sick and tired of doing problems 5.1 to 5.10 at the end of chapter 5. And I told them I'm sick and tired of grading them. So that was really a good win-win situation. So they wanted something meaningful, something hands-on, dealing with real people and so on. So that's how the project came up and how Engineers Without Borders United States essentially was created by a handful of students with a dream to make the world a better place. For me, there was a lot of kicking and screaming. I told them, hey, I'm supposed to publish or perish. Don't bother me with this kind of work. But they say, no, it's cool, it's good for you, come over, and so on. And so they really got me into the business. I'm, to this day, very thankful for their enthusiasm. Since then, Engineers Without Borders, as Verred mentioned, has grown in size in the United States. It's about in 40 different countries also in the world. So Engineers Without Borders International, and Verred is on the board of Engineers Without Borders International, representing EWB Israel. But we have about 12,000 members now, about 275 chapters in the United States. Interestingly enough, at the beginning, students were excited. And then came the professionals. The professionals, retired or non-retired, and say, we want to get involved in that kind of work. So out of those chapters, we have about half of them, or maybe 60% are student chapters, and 40% are professional chapters. These are engineers who get together, they take a real project, they work on a real project, they go to the field, they deliver the solutions, they raise their own money, and in some instances, they work with the students as well. So what's unique about that platform is that students learn from the professionals, and the professionals find some very talented students, and then they can hire later on. So there's some side components to that kind of dynamic between students and professionals. And that's really unique. Where do young people today learn the skills of engineering? We all know that. They don't learn it in a classroom. Come on, let's be real about it. Whether it is in Israel, it is in the United States, it's in Moscow, it is in Paris, it is in India, they don't. So we essentially create virtual engineers by the time they graduate. After 4 years of boot camp, it's time for them to do some real work. Well, rude awakening when they see the reality of the world. So in this case, we offer the students a unique opportunity to experience real engineering before graduation and to work side by side with professional engineers. What kind of world are we living in? Well, we're living on a planet of 7 billion people today, as I mentioned to you before. 750 million do not have clean water. And the concept clean, if you go to the world, the WHO and UNICEF, it's not really clear what clean is. In fact, nobody has a clue of what clean is. There are no measurable indicators of clean water. According to WHO 2012, what is clean is something that came out from a pipe or from a pump. You can have clean water coming out and then have seen, like some of you may have seen, people putting clean water into a dirty bucket and it becomes dirty water instantly, right? So the concept of clean water, take it very carefully, it's poorly defined. Lots of people dying, 2.5 billion people do not have sanitation. There's a lot of open defecation in the world, especially in Asia as well, in India rather, and also in sub-Sahara Africa. 2.4 billion people at risk of malaria and so on and so forth. 1.6 billion people do not have access to electricity. On a given day, about 25,000 people die for reasons that are purely preventable. About 5,000 from indoor air pollution. That's a big killer in the world. I will show you a slide later on where people inhale essentially smoke, because the cooking has no ventilation whatsoever. 5,000 people from TB, tuberculosis, 5,000 people from HIV/AIDS, 5,000 people from malaria, and 5,000 people from poor water and sanitation. That translates into about 9 million people per year who die for reasons that are purely preventable. Plain and simple, we, scientists, technicians, technologists, and engineers, have the know-how, we have the resources, we have the knowledge to avoid 9 million deaths per year. Okay. Wow. Now, if you look at the priorities, now, I wanted to, before I talk about the priorities, I want to talk to you about the UN Millennium Development Goals. It's actually a big issue right now. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, there's a big convention in Rio de Janeiro called Rio Plus 20. You may hear about it, where they are looking at essentially the Rio Summit of 1992 in the field of sustainability. And these are 8 goals that 192 countries in the world have decided to reach by 2015. Are we going to reach those goals? No. Believe me, if all problems in the world were technical, we would have solved them by now. Listen to that. If all problems in the world were technical, we would have solved them by now. Poverty has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with resources. It has nothing to do with education. It has everything to do with denial and a lack of will from our political systems and economic systems, who have a vested interest in keeping the system the same. So how do we address those 8 goals? I'm an engineer, and I don't know, for those of you about my age, I'm 57, I've always been impressed by the space program. I remember when a man walked on the moon, and that's the rocket, that's the Saturn V rocket that pushed 3 people to the moon. Look at the size of this rocket, 7.6 million pounds of force to lift 3 characters there at the top. Talk about, is that effective or is that efficient? You know, think about it. The point I'm trying to make is that to get 3 people out of this planet, it takes a lot of force. And that force has to do with gravity. G. I have to show some vectors, right? Since I'm an engineer, right? I have to. I mean, I did not bring any integrals today in my pocket, but I could certainly create one just for you. Now, I compare that to that. We've been able to do that. Bring people into space. We had people once in space, they can live sustainably and so on. What about lifting this community out of poverty? So there are a bunch of forces here. Some, you can see I'm getting really complex in my equations. To lift, essentially, people out of poverty. I'm really interested about the 1 billion people who make less than $1 a day. Imagine if we could come up with some solutions where we bring 1 billion people who make less than $1 a day to $2 a day. Whoa, we are doubling their capital. We cannot even do that. Is that something that we, as a human race, cannot even do that? So, what are those forces? Well, if you look at those forces, there's a bunch of them that have been responsible for the greatest evils in human history, especially in the 20th century. Apathy, so on and so forth. Things that are not acceptable, have nothing to do with technology. If you combine those forces to the human characteristics, and frankly, as I'm getting older, I'm 57, almost 58, I'm really questioning the human design, or the lack of nonsense, or the complete nonsense that how we behave, in particular, these pathological forms of behavior of ours. Our priorities do not seem to fit very well how we want the planet to be such a peaceful place, and so on and so forth. And here's a form of pathological behavior. What do you see here? Is that guy typing on a computer. What do you think he's doing? He's doing something that we all do every day, right? He's in the bathroom, right? And what do you see here? Kids swimming in the same water where he's going into the bathroom. Don't you think that it's a little bit illogical, this kind of scenario here? I mean, don't you think there's a problem there between the two? The two should not be close to each other, right? I mean, I don't like when people poop in the water where I swim in, right? No? No, I know if some of you like that. Right? So there's some problem there, some kind of behavior. This kind of, I mean, you can think about the consequences in terms of health of those children. That's not good engineering. We all agree on that. That needs to be changed, and that can be changed essentially in the form of sanitation, hygiene, and so on, at a very minimum cost. And also in changing the behavior of that man. And we need to change his behavior. Not telling him what to do, but there's a whole field of behavior change communication where how do you train people to wash their hands? It's amazing, for instance, in countries in Africa where you say, wash your hands. Say, what? I'm not going to wash my hands. Why? Because if I wash my hands, my soul is going to disappear. My personality is going to disappear. How do you convince someone to wash his hands? How do you convince someone to go to the bathroom in a place where the children don't swim? This may be obvious to you and me, because we usually don't do that, but for someone who has done it for a long, long time, it is not obvious. So as scientists and technologists, we may come up with some great solutions, but those solutions ultimately have to have a human dimension. They need to translate to this. They need to translate to real people. It can be high-tech, low-tech, but ultimately, if that man, I don't know, look at his iPad into this bathroom, I don't think the iPad is going to do any good in making the life of the children any better. I'm just exaggerating here. But you can see that science and technology by itself is not enough to address poverty. There are other parameters that are non-technical. That's the world at night. What do you see there? Well, you see a lot of people who have a lot of light, and you see some people who don't have any. Well, if you look at the African continent, that's about 600 million people in the African continent, twice the population as the United States. And yes, the US energy consumption is 80 times that of Africa. A typical energy system in a home in the United States is about 3,000 to 5,000 watts compared to 50 to 75 watts, maximum of 120 watts in a home in Africa. Some people have too much and some people don't have enough. Now when you look at something like this, you can see that, to me, when I see a dark continent like this, there are some missed opportunities there. There are many people in here who have potential for economic growth. There's a lot of entrepreneurs here. There's a lot of kids whose life could be changed by just having one light bulb or two light bulbs. I remember working in Afghanistan. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and each time I crossed the Israeli border, they always give me a hard time because they see a lot of stamps in my passport from Afghanistan, as you can tell. But I worked in Afghanistan for the USAID and on other projects, and I remember when there was only 3 hours of light at night, the kids would go outside under the light post in the streets and study very rapidly because there was such a strong desire to learn and being educated. Light, electricity changes your life forever, and it does not take very much. As engineers, I think we have unique solutions, scientists and technicians, we have unique solutions to provide lights to everyone, not necessarily in a centralized way. There's no way that we will have a grid, an electric grid across Africa overnight. That won't happen. But what about creating decentralized systems of energy, where the systems actually are owned by the local people, run by the local people, and provide energy all over the place? That happens with the phones. How many phones do you think we have in the world today? There are 7 billion people. There are 6 billion phone subscription of cellular phones in the entire world. 6 billion. Phone industry is a great industry to be in right now. It's not run by some major organizations. It's run by the regional organizations. Anyone who has a phone before they even have food, to communicate, to talk to each other. The phone, the cellular phone, has changed the planet forever. And I will show you some examples later on. By the way, there are 6 billion phones in the world. How many toothbrushes do we have in the world? 4 billion. So we have more phones than we have toothbrushes in the world to brush teeth, right? The numbers are just incredible. There's a huge markets right now happening in India and in China. I don't know if you realize that, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes from now. Huge markets that are essentially disturbing completely the market economics of the Western world. Another inequality that we see in the world is regarding health. This is health, life expectancy, how long you can expect to live as a function of GDP. Pretty much how much money you make per day, right? So it actually goes in per dollars per person, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. Okay, you can see that the overall trend is that more money you make, more money you have, longer is your life expectancy. Israel is somewhere up there, about 82 years of age. Japan is actually the highest life expectancy. Lots of old people in Japan. I was reading the other day that there are more diapers sold to old people than there are to children in Japan. So be careful when you sit on somewhere in Japan. Just warning, right? Just warning. Okay. All right. Now what we see on this diagram is that not all people are essentially lucky here. If you were to look very closely at those countries here, all those countries are in Africa. See, all the African countries are very low GDPs and very low life expectancy, as low as 45, even as low as 32.9. I think there are some countries that are as low. Very low, except Afghanistan here. All those countries, Afghanistan is 45 today. Now, what was life expectancy in the United States 100 years ago? 57. In Europe, 57. I don't know how it was in Israel. But in Europe and the United States was 57 100 years ago. Today, 77. I mean, who has contributed to life expectancy, better life expectancy? Doctors, but let's not give credit to all the doctors, engineers as well. Scientists. When you have hygiene, sanitation, you have water, you have electricity, you have access to a lot of services that can make your life better. You know, there's something, the phones ring like this. In my class, when I teach, I give 3 warnings. The first warning, I say, okay, don't do that again. The second warning, I say, don't do that again. And the third warning, I take the phone and I break it in half. So warning for the third person there, right? But I won't do it since you guys are so nice. But don't push the limits there, okay? All right? Okay, so, but China is an interesting one. China has moved a lot. In fact, if you look at this platform here, if you go to this website, Gapminder World, he's leaving because he's afraid, you can see. He's leaving. I say, I cannot take that guy. You know, but if you look at Gapminder.world there, you can actually make it, this is a dynamic process. You can look at it how it was in 1880, and it evolves over time. It's just fabulous, and you can select one country at a time. For instance, if you look at China, China started here, went down during the Cultural Revolution, went up, and shot all the way up. France, same thing. Each time there was a war, it would go down. It's a fantastic platform if you're interested in looking at how life expectancy is changing over time. Water is the same thing here. I don't want to spend too much time on this diagram. That's 2012. Water, essentially, access to water is broken down into pipe water people who have not piped water, but they have access to a pump. Those who do not have access to a pump or piped water, and those will go directly to the lake, surface water. What this diagram shows that over the world, let's look at this diagram, from 1990 to 2010, people who had access to piped water went from 45% to 54%. Those who went from hand pump went from 31 to 35. Number of people unimproved system 18 to 8, and there are still 3% of the world's population who are using surface water today. That's over the entire world. Now, if you look at it by region, it's a different ballgame. So I'm going to look at the worst case one. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But look at sub-Saharan Africa. There are still 13% today of people in sub-Saharan Africa who essentially drink water from surface water that is completely contaminated. And you have essentially 26% additional, so a total of 39, but 40% of people in sub-Saharan Africa who do not have access to hand pumps or to pipe water. Very bad water conditions. That's 2012. That's after dumping billions and billions and billions of dollars into water systems in the world. Let me give you a piece of statistics. If you look at all the water systems that have been installed in the world, 60% of them fail after 6 months. What? After 6 months, 60% of pumps and all the equipment that has been installed by NGOs and World Bank and United Nations and UNDP and WHO and UNICEF fail after 6 months. Why do you think that is? Lack of maintenance, lack of follow-up, no sustainability. Only 1% of all water projects in the world have a sustainable plan after completion. That, if you go to Water.org as an organization, they will give you all the statistics. Terrible, essentially, results it comes in terms of water. Voices of the poor. What is poverty? Well, the World Bank I mentioned to you before is not has a lot of reports, but there are 3 reports that I really enjoyed reading in terms of statistics for the book that I'm writing right now. It has to do with Voices of the Poor. That's the title of the book. It interviewed about 60,000 people around the world who are poor and say, why are you poor? What are the conditions of poverty? Nothing has to do with money. First one has to do with livelihood, no water, no sanitation, no electricity, no education, isolation. When people are poor, they are isolated. When they are isolated, they do not have any power whatsoever in terms of election, in deciding their future. Just some examples. Physical weakness. Physical weakness creates poverty. Poverty creates physical weakness. There's a lot of dual causality. Gender relationship. Women in the world are treated so bad, and children in the world are treated so bad, especially girls. Let me give you some statistics. Regarding water collection, that's 2012 statistics. Each day, women spend 16 million hours of collecting water over the entire world, compared to men 6 million hours and children 4 million hours. When children collect water, wood, food, women do that. They do not have any hope whatsoever in education, in terms of free time, in terms of empowerment. They are treated as at the bottom of the food chain. If you add to that, in case of India and Nepal, caste system, it's even worse. So if there's one message that I want you to convey, is whatever work you do, make sure that you empower women in the work that you are doing. It's clear, it has been shown, statistics, that when women are educated, families decrease in size, families are better. Men usually use the money and drink it, unfortunately. Look at this picture. Probably cannot see too many people in there. The reason you cannot see them is because they cannot see you. And the reason they cannot see you is the primitive condition in which they live. That picture was taken a few years ago at 17,000 feet in Nepal. You can see women there and about 4 or 5 children. and that's the kind of cook stove, and that woman is likely to be in that room for a long, long time. 1.5 million people in the world, women mostly, and children, die of indoor air pollution. What would it take to fix this problem? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It will certainly require some education, but it will take nothing in terms of science and technology. We have the know-how, we have the resources, and the reason we don't do it, it's a lack of will, it's denial, and it's denial of denial, denial squared. Another one that I talked about the poor, physical poor, material poor. Then I'm going to talk about the other poor. Those are the inner poverty, the people who have too much. Insanity in terms of numbers. Let's look at one in particular. That's essentially how much money people spend per year on various stuff. Pet industry in the United States, $52 billion. Do you know that how much it would cost to bring clean water, sanitation, immunization, education to all the children in the world? $40 billion per year. This piece of statistics is telling us that in the United States, dogs and cats in the United States are better treated than children all over the world. That does not speak very highly of an intelligent species on this planet. I will show you something that is completely insane but funny at the same time, is the dog at the pet spa at Harrods in London. This picture was taken about, actually I took it from the website, but I visited the pet spa in London in December of last year because we were stuck in London and we wanted to see Harrods, but they told us, go to the pet spa. So the pet spa is a place where pets, they are called very important pets, VIPs, are treated better than I think most humans on this planet, let's put it that way, when the rich owners are probably buying tons of stuff also that is unnecessary. But it says, taking from the website, the pet spa promises a whole menu of animal-friendly services, including behavioral counseling, that's psychological counseling, full body massages, so massage of your dogs and cats, animal Reiki, you know, Reiki is like pressure points, as well as nutritional advice, personal training sessions, and grooming. Okay, whoa! Excuse me, but there's something wrong about the British. All right? If I were an alien coming on a spaceship on this planet, and I see something like this, and I check at this dog is not even happy. And you know that this dog is female because they are putting some nail polish there. As I've mentioned before, if that dog were in Saudi Arabia, that dog would be arrested in the mall. And so, I mean, don't you think that's insane? If I were an alien coming to this planet and I go to Harrods to buy some stuff, and I see this, and I go around and I see the entire Jean Paul collection of clothes for pets and cats with the Christmas special. Whoa! I would say, there's no way I'm going to stay on this planet. It's time for me to get out of here. No wonder we don't have too many aliens on this planet. I can tell you that. Now I'll compare that to this. These are typical projects there that I'm being familiar with. That's kind of stuff back to reality, unfortunately. But you can see this on the top there, diagram. That was our second project in Mali, but essentially dirty water, looks like lemonade, but it's actually urine and feces with water of a latrine that was leaking into the well. Half of the children in that community died by the age of 5, to give you an idea. Okay, they would not even name their kids until the age of 6, and I can tell you that seeing a child die in front for something that where you feel completely helpless is something that will change you forever. Okay, so and that no PhD, no publication, nothing can stop that process. But we can do better than that. So the bottom line for us is really creating, to me, that's the big picture, the kind of work that science and technology for poverty reduction is about, is to create stable, equitable, safe, prosperous, and sustainable communities where people have potential to explore their future. Now the question is, well, are engineers competent? I would say the same thing about scientists and people in technology to undertake development work. Do we have the tools to do that? Where do we train to do that? Would you go to school for that? Well, the answer is we are not. We are not educated in working in different cultures and a developing world. I don't know how it is, but in the United States, engineers are nerds. You know what that is, a nerd, right? Someone who looks like this, with plenty of pants sticking out, and usually with short pants, they are like this. Yeah? Good at math and physics and technology, but have no clue on how to deal with people. So if you don't know how to deal with people, you can take a class, and you can come with us on Engineers Without Borders projects, and you will quickly get a field lesson on how to deal with people and how to use a different aspect of your knowledge in helping others. So we need a new generation of engineers, I do believe so, dealing with not engineers are just not providing value-neutral technical solutions. We need to have a value system in place. In other words, when we address poverty, we cannot stay value-neutral. We need engineers who are peacemakers, social entrepreneurs, facilitators of sustainable human development. I'm working right now on a committee at the National Academy of Engineering in the United States. We are really looking at the role of science and technology in peacemaking. Who is the biggest funder of that program? The Department of Defense. War. Side by side with peacemakers. And I'm one of the few engineers in the situation because you know what? A peaceful community is not going to stay very peaceful if it doesn't have water and sanitation and energy and jobs and so on and so forth. Poverty breeds terrorism. Poor countries in the world, poor communities are easily influenceable by groups like Al-Qaeda very quickly. How do we fight terrorism? We can fight it from a military point of view. That's one way of doing it, but that's not enough. Creating capacity, creating empowerment, providing options beside carrying a gun and shooting at people is better for everyone. Poverty breeds terrorism. So the whole field of peace building, peacemaking, believe me, is of great interest to the military as well. And engineers, the kind of Engineers Without Borders kind of work there is very critical in improving and creating peaceful communities. So we really need to do that. I think we need what my colleague and friend Mark Talesnik would tell you, global engineers. We're living in a global world that needs global engineers. A global engineer is an engineer who is really good at science and technology, or global scientist. That's traditional education. You know everything about mechanical engineering, you know everything about civil engineering, you know everything about aerospace engineering, or what have you. That type of high type of education, we need to replace it by a T type of education. That does not change. We still need engineers who can build some good bridges and good tunnels, who are good at electronics and so on and so forth. But what we need is bright engineers who can talk to people, engineers who know about culture, engineers who can do participatory action research, engineers who know about social issues, anthropological issues, who speak a foreign language, and ultimately people who care about people. That's the kind of engineering that we are talking about, global engineering. That's a program that I direct at the University of Colorado. We got a $5 million endowment several years ago, but we train our students in 5 areas. Engineering technology, that's a must. Public health. We are creating healthy communities. governance, policies. We're also training them in the field of social entrepreneurship, creating jobs, and the field of security, that vulnerability. That could be the field of, it could be physical security, but also could be food security. It could be energy security. It could be job security, and so on and so forth. So our students, essentially, we offer a graduate certificate in that field. And we do research in that, and we teach classes, and we send the students to do a practicum for 4 to 6 weeks with an NGO somewhere in the world. At the core of that education is, and the core of research and development is the whole field of appropriate and sustainable technology. High tech, low tech. Appropriate to who? Appropriate to the communities, appropriate to the people. Kind of a technology that is owned by the people, understood by the people, that can be fixed by the people, and ultimately that creates jobs. How many of you have heard about don't give people a fish, teach them how to fish? You all have heard that, right? I mean, that's easy. Wow, that's boring, right? Well, let me tell you, in the kind of work that you do, I'm not interested in teaching people how to fish. I'm interested in teaching them how to catch the fish, how to skin the fish, how to can the fish, how to sell the fish. I'm interested in creating fishing industries and a market for the fish. How do we train engineers and scientists to go from an idea to design, to a prototype, to implementation? Poof, now we talk with business people, we create a business plan, and we create a business. That's the big picture. A global engineer is someone who can do that. That requires essentially engineers to step out of their silos. That requires engineers to talk to social scientists, business folks, and that also requires them to come and talk to engineers. Believe me, that's the future of engineering. This kind of technology that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to show you a few examples, is a technology with a human face. It can be high-tech or low-tech. We have built dams. We have built bridges. We have built small systems that I'm going to show you as well. It doesn't have to be, oh, those poor people in Africa, let's give them a small technology and goodbye. It's good engineering, quality control type of engineering. It has to have quality control, quality assurance. And it has to be affordable, accessible, and people can buy it. And it has to last. So it's a huge challenge there. But it's a technology with a human face. Someone is going to use that technology. So you're going to empower someone, and ultimately that person is going to have so much power that he or she can get out of poverty. Here's an example of a project that we did several years ago in Peru. Here's the problem to you. We are in the middle of the jungle. 1,000 people live here. The hospital is there. These are people who make less than $1 a day. For them to go to the hospital, it would take an entire day to go by boat on the Amazon River to go to the hospital and maybe see a doctor. Another day to go back. That's $2. $2 that are not spent on feeding the family or providing education. Here is essentially a method called telemedicine. The idea of the telemedicine is to have a computer here, a computer there. The doctor talks to a nurse and talks to some patient over there. Big. That's high tech. Cost of this project, $15,000, 1.5. Wow. Teleeducation, where the teacher is here, the students are here. Teletechnology, where someone has a problem with a pump or solar panel, the technician is here. The bank is here. The person is over there. They want to transfer some money using a cellular phone, using intranet or internet. There are different options that are available. All in a sudden, people here can be much more productive, save money, and go maybe from $1 a day to $2 a day, and eventually to $10 a day. Here's a project in the United States. We are doing a lot of work in Native American tribes, Indians. You see that in movies, right? In that tribe, it's called the Crow tribe in Montana, 60% unemployment, 70% dropout rate in high school, huge area in alcoholism, huge big area in alcoholism. People live in trailers that came from Louisiana. You know those trailers, that construction trailers? 15 to 20 people per trailer. In a place where the temperature is 20 degrees below zero in the wintertime and plus 30 or 40 in the summertime. Total cost of utilities, $400 per month. These are people who make less than $1 a day. So the government and the Bureau of Indian Affairs asked us to come up with a solution that is better than that. It was easy. So we came up with a solution of technology using earth, clay and sand, cement and water that is mined on the land. So there's a company that is created for mining. Then it goes into a machine that splits blocks. We have a machine on site that builds about 16 blocks a minute. Those blocks about 20 kilos each, but quite big. So that's a second company that was created. The third company was the construction company. 7 homes like this one have been built so far. Those homes are energy efficient. They have passive solar. On the inside, they are designed to have a therm wall that takes the heat in the wintertime and radiates the heat during the night. They also have a closed-loop geothermal system that essentially allows for transfer of temperature from the top of the ground to the bottom and to replace a conventional furnace and a conventional air conditioning system. The utility bill went from $400 to, our goal was $25. We have reached somewhere between $75 and $100. Been able to reduce that. People have been very happy with the housing. The houses were designed in complete participation with the tribe. That project, which translates into about $500,000 a year to the University of Colorado, involves research. We had to do testing, material testing. I had 4 master students who worked on this project in terms of material characterization. One student instrumented all the homes. He's in the field of building systems to monitor how the house is performing during the winter and the summer. Here's a good example of a project that is benefiting a community of about 8,000 people that can be fully integrated into engineering education and research and development and creates graduate students. Another project that we did in Kabul. Kabul has no wood. The trees were destroyed essentially during the Taliban period and also by the Soviets. So how do people stay warm when it's 20, 30 degrees below zero in wintertime? Most don't, and there's a lot of people who die. I met this gentleman, and Mark knows him quite well. His name is Sanu Kajay from Nepal. Sanu came up with the concept of fuel briquettes. So what he does is to collect waste from the city. We do waste mining, city mining, imagine. Now, city mining, there's a lot of waste in the city, like Kabul, for instance, stuff that people dump out there. And essentially, we are looking for sawdust, if we can find some, but we can replace it with rice husk, cardboard, paper, any organic material that is crushed and in the form of a sludge and gives you a fuel briquette that will burn for maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes there. A press was built, and out of this project, we took 20 young kids from the prostitution ring of Kabul, 20 boys who were prostitutes several years ago, trained them using the help of UNICEF, helped them to, believe me, from a psychological point of view, that was not easy, trained them to make those briquettes in the morning, and in the afternoon they had to go to school, kind of an earn-learn type of program. They were paid $50 each to go to school in the afternoon and to work in the morning. The presses were designed so that those presses would not create any strain on the bodies of the kids. We also hired 5 beggars, handicapped beggars, from the streets of Kabul. Obviously, it's a different case. In this case, we trained them to become managers, and we paid them $200 per month. The press here is the same press as the other one, but slightly different. You can see there's a wheel at the top. It allows for someone to sit on a wheelchair and to turn the press and to make a living instead of being a beggar. Here's a good example of a technology that was adapted to the people and a technology that created jobs and created some opportunities. When I last checked in 2010, there was a school of 250 kids, 200 girls and 50 boys who benefited from the selling of those briquettes. I'm actually starting a project in Haiti in a few weeks from now, exactly that, downtown Haiti in Port-au-Prince, downtown Port-au-Prince, and helping an entire neighborhood. I want to scale it up. Instead of 250 kids, I want a few thousand. Bridge construction, that's another example. You think that this kind of work is low-tech. This is the design of an entire bridge for a community in Ethiopia to replace an existing bridge. That bridge was destroyed by the Italians during World War II. What you see here, someone hanging there. What's that person doing? That person is not doing bungee jumping, believe me. It's not exercise. It's not like someone say, hey, I need an adrenaline rush. I'm going to jump out of a bridge. In this situation, the city, the town, the village is here, and the market is there. People have to cross the bridge to sell things. So the way it works is that they attach themselves to a rope. You pay a few shekels. You go to the other side, and at night you go back to the other side. That bridge here replaces this kind of system. A bridge is not just concrete or steel or masonry. A bridge is a way of life, a way of commerce, a way of interaction. And you have to think as an engineering structure a little bit more. This is a project in Nepal that has to do with latrines. I'm almost done. Latrines and also protection of springs. There was a problem there with the water. Water is extremely contaminated. And we had to use the patch test there, which is a test used by our colleagues in environmental engineering, where you put some dirty water on that disc there. You let it for a few days, and then if there are some black spots, it tells you whether the water is contaminated. That's the executive summary of the report. It says, if a cow poops in the water, and if you see someone poop in the water, and you put some water on this, don't drink the water. End of executive summary. Imagine if all the reports in the world were written like that. We might understand what the World Bank is telling us to do. And also maybe deans and chancellors and vice chancellors. Who knows? No. And hey, it's better. That's the best type of executive summary. Innovation. Huge innovation market there. There's something here today that is growing faster than you and I can believe in, especially in India and China, where we see young entrepreneurs, even in Jordan. I was listening the other time, what in the United States they are talking the second Arab Spring. The first Arab Spring, we can decide whether it was a success or not, but it's mostly democratization of Arab countries. The second one is once those countries are democratized, we have young people, young entrepreneurs who are extremely creative, like all of you in the room, and they want to make a living. Now, Jordan has actually an incubator right now. It was not driven by the king. It's just grassroots of young people who want to create a Silicon Valley near Amman, Jordan. Huge potential coming up from the young people in the world. To give you an example, one guy in India came up with the handheld EKG. That's an electrocardiogram. What does an electrocardiogram do? Your heart, right? It does boom, 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 boom. That guy developed a portable electrocardiogram, $800, and it can give a treatment of $1 per patient. His market, 4 to 5 billion people. Whoa, why do you want to stick to 1 billion people when you can have a market of 4 to 5 billion people? General Electric, I suppose General Electric is big in Israel, sells EKGs for a few $100,000. Don't you think that General Electric say, wait a minute here, it's not too good for our business. Yes, our EKGs have bells and whistles, are complex, but you know what? If I want to have an EKG, I want to know if I'm going to die or not in the next 5 minutes. I don't need a fancy EKG system. This man is doing what we call right now, and it's all over the place in science and technology. Disruptive engineering, disruptive innovation, disruptive science and technology. Disruptive. Disruptive to who? Disruptive to the establishment. Huge market, huge innovation that is taking place from young people in India and so on. The Tata Swatch, clean water filter, $22 initial cost, no moving part, 3,000 liters, 200 days for a family of 5. If I were a dean of engineering, I would create a department of disruptive engineering, and I would put the brightest young people I can find from all over the world working in there in an open area where they can interact. No walls, no offices. Go for it, and let's go to the stars. The demand is there. Your market is 4 to 5 billion people. Huge opportunities like we have never seen before, as long as you address in your design affordability, accessibility, and availability. One more area, assistive technology. There are 650 million people with disabilities in the world, 520 million in the developing world, 200 million are children. These pictures were taken a few months after the earthquake in Haiti. We were there in March of 2010. Look at this child. No legs, 2 hands, a head. What is the future of that child? What are you and I going to do? What are we going to do in making sure that that child is a productive member of society? What is the role of your fancy or our fancy science and technology in improving the livelihood of that child? Or is that child doomed to be a beggar for the rest of his life or her life? Is that the answer? Absolutely not. That's why if I were a dean of engineering, I would create and say, this is your customer, times 4,000 to 20,000 amputees in Haiti, times 200 million children in the world, times 525 million people in the developing world. Many of them could hear some better hearing aids, could have some prosthetics that someone who makes less than $1 a day can buy, and with what that person can make a living. So, 2 slides there for conclusion. I think that I wanted to convey with you, number one, I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of passion because I cannot accept the status quo that we see in the engineering education today and in engineering practice today. Why? Because I've traveled the world. Che Guevara is not one of my favorite people, but he had a great quote. Even bad people can come up with great quotes. Don't try to change the world, but let the world change you. What the world has changed me in showing that what I teach in the classroom or what my colleagues teach in the classroom is completely out of whack with reality. It's no longer connected to the child that I showed you before, to the millions of people who could use a better future. Same thing, engineering practice. How come engineering is only doing practice for 1 billion rich people on this planet? Do all people in the world need nuclear power stations? Do all people in the world need centralized electric systems? Do all people in the world need centralized wastewater treatment systems? Do all people in the world need an iPad? Do all people in the world need to have an iPad and an iPhone and a computer and what have you there? No. I think that we need to look at a different mindset, and that's why I like about this quote from Albert Einstein, problems we face cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them. Where do we change? Where do we think out of the box? Universities have been designed to do so. Unfortunately, I don't see too many universities that are taking the challenge. That's like those three monkeys, right? I see too many people in the economic arena, in the political arena in the world who don't want to hear change, they don't want to see change, and they don't want to talk change. And believe me, as long as I am alive, I will speak change, I will talk change, and I will be an annoying type of person to all those people who don't want to change. With that, I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to share with you some smiles, because ultimately, how do you know that you are doing good engineering? If you bring smiles to your customers and to yourself, then I think it's a good indicator, it's a good measure that something is going right. Smile of a little girl in Peru who is talking to a teacher or a friend. Remember that system that I was telling you about, $15,000? Children in Nepal looking at a computer driven by a PV system, children in Rwanda, and these are 4 children from Afghanistan who a few years ago were selling their bodies to make a few shekels a day or what have you there, and then who were given a chance to step out of that awful life, unacceptable life. We need to denounce abuses of human rights. We need to denounce abuses of women. We need to denounce abuses of the environment. If we don't, we are just a bunch of hypocrites. So I'm just asking you to be change makers, agents of change, and see how you can change the world, make the world a better place, essentially in your own way. Each one of us has a unique gift. Each one of us can help. There are 60,000 children in the streets of Kabul on a given day, many of them go into prostitution. I think we can do better than that as a human species. Thank you.
Questions for Bernard? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Oh, okay, you, and then one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was interested in knowing where do you get the resources, the funding for all those projects? I mean, you mentioned systems cost $10,000, $15,000. It's still a lot of money sometimes, and I bet some systems cost a lot more.
Donations, foundations, Engineers Without Borders. I'm wearing 2 hats. One is Engineers Without Borders USA, and the other one is the center. In the case of the center, we get research grants. You know, I have to apply for research grants from different organizations. In the case of the NGO, EWB USA, the money comes from donations and foundations and grants as well. There's plenty of money out there.
How much of your time is spent raising that money?
48 hours a day. A lot. I think that, but you need, it's not just one person who drives an organization. It's teamwork. If you want to succeed in life, you surround yourself with people who are more intelligent than yourself. That's what I've done. Plenty of people with passion. I mean, I think that there's the passion there. And the idea is to delegate essentially to other people and let it happen. I think with passion is something we don't see too often. I mean, you don't see too many passionate politicians, too many passionate economists or passionate teachers or passionate students. It's really sad. I think with passion, people resonate with that passion. I've met a lot of people like you and the rest of the audience interested in making the world a better place. You'll be surprised to see how much good there is in this world and how many people want to say, hey, enough is enough. But we are poorly organized, right? Imagine connection, citizens without borders, right? Humans without borders. That's what it's all about, anyway. But there's plenty of funding out there. But you've got to do good work. It's still good engineering here, right? I mean, still engineering with quality control. There's management, there's project management, like any project you can think of. There's a timeline, there's a strategy, there's management, there's planning, there's design. But on top of here, you are dealing with people, you are dealing with cultures, and that's a little bit more complex than dealing with concrete, right? Or steel, or masonry. So it's adding engineering plus, it's the global engineer. I think that the idea of very good at what you do, on top of that, you need to add anthropology. Take a class in anthropology or class in sociology to understand people. Believe me, it's a full-time job there to understand people. But there's plenty of funding. Don't even worry about funding. Abundance, not scarcity. Passion, abundance, forget about scarcity. These are two great recipes for success. Yes, sir. Sorry. No, he's at the back. He raised his hand. Yes.
I was going to ask, the dimensions of the problems you guys are trying to solve are very, very big. Aren't you afraid you're just too small to tackle a problem this big? And wouldn't it be better if you go and try to change the system? Maybe go to the government, to the political area, and try to change the system from there?
You're a young man. I'm an older man. The system, my friend, is constipated and congested. Any anti-constipation medicine will not work with any of our politicians. So I've decided that I will not change the system. I think the system is, it's a grassroots transformation from the bottom up. But sooner or later, the system will come. You're going to hit the ceiling. I mean, you can grow so much. Sooner or later, you need to understand the system. But when you deal with a system, you are dealing with some very interesting dinosaurs that are slow at reacting, thinking, that are egocentric, usually, most of them. So it's an older man talking to a younger man here. Piece of wisdom. But they have a role to play. But my back has a few wounds, and I also have a few wounds below the belt coming from those characters. And they still hurt. Yes, sir.
How do you locate the communities that you help, and also the government any resistance to the changes that you do?
Yeah. How do we find the communities? Usually they go through. We don't advertise, but Peace Corps volunteers. We have that in the United States. Or it could be an NGO that hears about us, and they have to go through a process. They apply. They have to complete an application that is being reviewed by professional engineers. Professional engineers in EWB USA play a very critical role. They help in reviewing the design and also selecting the projects. There are also communities where you don't want to go. You know, better to say no right at the beginning. Usually we have a first visit. We look at the community. It's something, do a pre-appraisal and then appraisal, pre-assessment, assessment. In the pre-assessment, you see that the project is going to benefit one person, one church, one group. It's going to split people. Then you don't touch the project.
And what about resistance? I mean, local resistance, people not liking changes or something like that?
That happens. You have to adapt to the situation. There's a lot of adaptivity to it. Design as you go, kind of. But there are times when you've got to abandon the project. If people are not on board, it's participation. If people are not on board, don't try. If a community has no vision, in the Bible there's a quote: when people have no vision, they perish. There's a quote in English. When people do not have a vision, they perish. It's very hard to help somebody who doesn't have a vision. You can help that person create that vision, but if that person that does not gain that vision, you can do everything you want, it won't happen. Sometimes it's better to step out, wait that a new leader comes in. You know, again, That happens. That happens in the United States. Sometimes it's better to be patient. Patience is a virtue, which I don't have. Yes.
You said that more than 60% of water projects are not sustainable after half a year. What would be your elevator pitch for sustainability?
Sustainability, well, number one, good engineering. Very often those systems are implemented by people who know nothing about engineering. You know, you hear about so many church groups and religious groups and say, oh, those poor little kids in Africa, let's give them a pump. I cannot stand that. The kind of work that we are doing, it's not charity, it's development. There's a big difference. It's empowerment. Many people go into the charity model. Charity, again, is really people giving them a fish, right, every day. I think model for sustainability would be participation as much as possible. It will be good engineering, follow through, education of the people, and a continuous visit, say not every day, not every week, but every maybe 3 or 4 months, 6 months, and make sure that you have a local partner, an NGO that can follow through. This would be a recipe. Are you going to succeed all the time? Absolutely not. You're going to fail. Now, I replace the term failure by lessons learned. Nobody likes to fail, right? Especially engineers. But call it lessons learned. You're going to learn a lot. There are things, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you and I can go into a small village in Africa for a month, a year. We will never know the true dynamic of that community. It's like I come to your family for a few days here and there. I don't know. I will never know your family and all the things that happen when I'm not there. So you can only get small windows, essentially, about what the community is about. So there's a lot of uncertainty. The kind of engineering that we do here is called engineering with uncertainty. There's a lot of second guessing. But, you know, you talk to people, you sit down, and very often when you go to a village the first time around, you don't do anything. You think, but you sit down with the elders, and they tell you their stories, and the story of the ancestors. And they may even tell you that the ancestors are still present as they talk to you. And you better listen, because the ancestors may tell you something about your project. It requires humility, patience. So it's not traditional engineering, but it's a great way of learning how to be human. Yes, sir.
I don't understand the economical system in the world. So
Me neither.
But there is no connection between the fact that you earn thousands of dollars a month to the fact that they earn $1 a day.
I don't know. Earning $1 a day, I don't have an answer to your question. I know there's always someone who asks me tough questions, and it's you today. What's killing the planet is the inequities and that exist around the world. And probably in that same country where people make less than $1 a day, there are people who make probably $10,000 a day. You look at Nigeria, a very rich country, and yet you have all the wealth in Nigeria is not trickling down to the people from Nigeria. Why is that? Corruption. Remember the greatest evils, all those quotes that I put up front there, hatred, jealousy, ego, and all that stuff. That's what's killing our planet today. And corruption is certainly one of them. And corruption exists in the United States as it exists in Israel, as it exists in France, as it exists in Moscow, as it exists in a small village in Africa. I can tell you that. It's part of the human dysfunctionality. Of course, it's not fair that someone makes $1 a day and I make $1,000 a week. It's not fair, but I don't have an answer to that. What I'm trying to do is to make that person make $10 a day. No, I look at it from. I've been given a gift of intelligence, a gift of being able to speak to others and doing some work and helping others. My gift, I have to give it back to people in trying to lift them up, essentially from $1 a day to $2 a day, $5 a day. Am I going to do it by myself? Of course not. But we have about, 50, 60 people in this room, times, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Come on. How much money we are spending on weapons in the world? I'm nothing wrong about defense. I was in the military too. Last year we spent $1.4 trillion on military expenditures in the entire world. You divide that by 365 days, you divide that by 24 hours, you divide that by 60 minutes, you divide that by 60 seconds, and you do the math, it comes up to $32,000 a second. As a human species, we are very comfortable together, not they, not system, not President Obama or Netanyahu or Hollande or what have you there. We are comfortable to accept that $32,000 a second are spent. And every day we are comfortable that 30,000 children die or people die for reasons that are purely preventable. There's something dysfunctional about us as human beings. There's a design flaw. I want to meet the creator one of those days and say, what kind of engineering have you done? You probably did not graduate from an engineering school or from Tel Aviv University or the Technion. Not saying anything against defense. We need defense. We need intelligence. We live in a world where there are some crazy people out there. But imagine if we were to spend $1.4 trillion on poverty at the same time as we spend $1.4 trillion on weapons. We may not need to spend $1.4 trillion in defense. Or be less. But there are some crazy people out there, and we need defense. We need military. We need intelligence. But we need intelligent intelligence, which is an oxymoron.
So one more question regarding women. You help women work.
Yep.
Right? In traditional societies. I know it from Israel that it's very hard to convince the men in those villages, the tribes, whatever. How do you manage that?
I use my French accent. Who are we to tell, okay, here's the situation. You go to a village in Afghanistan and you see a man beating his wife in front of you. What do you do? I just want, somewhat related to your question. Do you intervene? Do you stop? Who are you to intervene? Who are you to change the culture? What do you do? It's probably against your religion, any of our religions. What do you do? You see a child being beaten up in front of you by a father in an African country. What do you do? See, the questions there, we can ask the questions in a vacuum, but within the context in which those situations happen, I know what I would do. I'll beat the heck out of that guy. I will probably end up in jail. But am I right to do that? These are value issues, they are ethical issues. When we talk about violation of human rights, what are those rights? Gender equality. Fine, I mean these are great concepts. I wish we could have that all the time. And I'm for that. I'm gender equality, peace in the world. But does that exclude the military? You know, the context in which you are is very, very question. When you are in a context like that, you see a child die in front of you, and you cannot do, like I have seen in Mali, and you cannot do anything. All my books and degrees and education, and I could not do anything. How do you live with yourself? Children in Afghanistan who blow up on landmines, and you see that, how do you go and live with yourself when you see something like that? Believe me, this kind of work there wears you out too. You need to take good care of yourself. For those of you who are interested in Engineers Without Borders, there's a lot of inner reflection. And you need to be strong for that kind of work. But ultimately, you're going to be faced with making decisions about value and ethics, and only you, with your own guard, can respond to those situations.
That's a very good question you asked.
Oh, yeah.
But when you build capacity, you don't just build capacity for instance in the women. It's a community. Even if you're looking at a family school, you're building capacity in everybody. So then you're changing, you're actually making a shift of everybody. So it's not just the female, the woman is gaining empowerment. The whole family does. It's a very powerful tool, capacity. So maybe by building this capacity, you actually are draining that difficulty. And you can see this happen in many places. You see it happening right before your eyes. The whole nucleus shift.
And
You can dissolve by that.
And change takes time. Sustainability takes time too. Now again, think about this. I love those three monkeys. That essentially summarizes why we have poverty in the world. Okay? Thank you. Well, you guys can have those quick questions.
Okay, so Bernard, we're going to switch to Hebrew. Just talk a bit about DWB Israel, but it's also getting late. We are past our time, so we'll do something short and quick. And if you want more information, then we can you can see us later. Okay. אוקיי, אז מה שנעשה ממש בכמה דקות, כי ממש אני אוותר ככה על כל הרקע, על הארגון וכולי, אבל בעצם יש לנו היום ארגון בישראל שנקרא מהנדסים ללא גבולות ישראל, שאנחנו בעצם חלק מהרשת הבינלאומית של EWB International, ובתוך EWB ישראל יש לנו סניפים שונים שיש בהם פעילות. הטכניון התחילו ראשונים ב-2008, תל אביב הצטרפו ב-2011, יש לנו קבוצה בשדה בוקר, קבוצה בירושלים, ובעצם מה שאנחנו עושים עכשיו, אנחנו בונים את הקפסיטי של הארגון הזה בישראל, אוקיי? ובמקביל בכל סניף בנפרד. ברנרד דיבר על EWB International, אני לא רוצה להרחיב על זה. אם אתם רוצים ללמוד עוד על הארגון, תעשו גוגל EWB International, יש שם את כל הקבוצות שיש בכל המדינות, מה הוויז'ן של הארגון, שזה בעצם לעבוד עם קהילות ולעזור להם לעזור לעצמן. אוקיי? בכל מדינה הארגון עובד כארגון עצמאי, עמותה עצמאית, בהתאם לחוקים באותה מדינה, וכל הארגונים יחד יושבים תחת המטריה של EWB International. בישראל בעצם הארגון עצמו קם ב-2008 מבחינה טכנית, מבחינה ארגונית, רישומית, אנחנו עמותה ישראלית רשומה. אנחנו עוסקים בפרויקטים מקומיים ובינלאומיים, ותכף ניתן קצת דוגמאות, ובעצם המטרה היא מחולקת לשתיים. זה קודם כל באמת לעבוד עם הקהילות ולעזור להם, לעזור לעצמם ולפתח ולהעצים את איכות החיים את היכולות שלהם וכולי, אבל גם חלק לא פחות חשוב זה מה שהמתנדבים שלנו מקבלים מהתהליך. אוקיי? מה שאנחנו קוראים ה-hands-on experience שאתם הסטודנטים מקבלים, שהפרופשיונלס שעוזרים מקבלים, היציאה הזאת מהמסגרות של העבודה, של הקיובקים ושל ההייטק ושל כל מה שברנרד דיבר של האינג'ינירינג ל-1 ביליון. מה האחרים צריכים? אוקיי? אז בעצם כל הנתינה והקבלה, הלמידה מהקהילות. אנחנו יודעים מהעבודה שאנחנו עושים בארצות הברית שהסטודנטים מקבלים הרבה יותר ממה שהם נותנים. הזיכרונות שהם לוקחים איתם, השינוי שהם בעצם עוברים בחיים, ולכן המטרה הזאת השנייה היא לא פחות חשובה מהמטרה הראשונה של העבודה עם הקהילות, וזה מאוד חשוב לי להעביר את זה. כמו שאמרתי, בישראל אנחנו קמנו ב-2008 עם הסניף הראשון שהתחיל בטכניון, יש לנו היום סניפים בטכניון, בתל אביב, בירושלים ובשדה בוקר, סניף חדש קם היום ממש בזמן הזה באוניברסיטת בן גוריון, פרויקטים בינלאומיים וקומיים, ומה שחשוב זה, למרות שזה נקרא מהנדסים ללא גבולות, וברנרד ניסה ככה קצת יותר לדבר על זה שזה באמת science and technology and innovation, ואנחנו לא יכולים לעשות שום העבודה הזאת בלי אנשי חינוך ואנשי כלכלה ואנשי ניהול ואנשי תרבות ואנתרופולוגים. רק ביחד אנחנו יכולים בעצם לעשות את העבודת שינוי הזאת. אז גם אם העבודה הארד קור של העבודה היא הדיזיין והפרויקטים שעוזרים באמת לשפר את האיכות חיים, בלי שיש את כל הדיסציפלינות שעוזרות, אנחנו לא נזוז לשום מקום, זה לא יהיה sustainable, כל המערכות יתפרקו לנו אחרי 6 חודשים במקרה הטוב, במקרה היותר טוב הם אולי ימשיכו לעבוד, אבל הקהילה פשוט לא תשתמש בהם. אז באמת, בשביל שזה יהיה זמין ושמיש לאורך זמן, אנחנו חייבים את מה שאנחנו אומרים, ה-holistic approach, באמת לקחת את כל התכנים האלה ולשים אותם ביחד, וזה בעצם גישה בין-תחומית לפתרון בעיות קיומיות. אוקיי? זה בעצם התמצית של כל העבודה. הפרויקטים עצמם הם בעלי השפעה עצומה, כמו שראיתם על הקהילות, דברים שאנחנו בכלל לא מדמיינים לנו ביומיום. ובנוסף יש את כל הנושא של ההעשרה וההשכלה, אם זה הסטודנטים ואם זה אנשי מקצוע שלא באים מהתחומים האלה וצריכים ללמוד גם כישורים חדשים בשביל שהם יוכלו לעשות את הפרויקטים. כי הרבה פעמים החינוך שאנחנו מקבלים לא מספיק לנו בשביל לעשות את הפרויקטים האלה. אז יש פה גם את הנושא של ההעשרה של המתנדבים, ואפיקי פעילות שלנו בישראל היום מתחלקים לאפיק בינלאומי, לדוגמה לטכניון יש פרויקט שרץ כבר מ-2008 בנפאל, החבר'ה של הפרויקט בטנזניה שיתחילו, יש את כל מה שקורה בתוך ישראל, יש לנו עכשיו 2 פרויקטים שרצים בירושלים, יש פרויקטים עם בדואים בנגב, ויש את האפיק שהוא השיתוף פעולה האזורי. יש קבוצות של מהנדסים ללא גבולות בירדן, ברשות, ואנחנו מאוד מנסים לעודד שיתוף פעולה, ובתוך הבנה שבעצם לחלוק את הידע ונושאי חינוך וסביבה וטכנולוגיה, אולי יכולים להוות איזשהו גשר לכל הדברים האחרים שהמערכת לא דאגה להם עד עכשיו, שהפוליטיקאים לא דאגו להם עד עכשיו. אנחנו שמים פוליטיקה בצד, אנחנו שמים דת בצד, אנחנו באים מראייה של איכות חיים של האנשים שגרים עכשיו בשטח. לא משנה איפה יעבור הגבול, לא משנה מה יהיה, ה-environment סובל, האנשים סובלים, ומשם אנחנו באים. זה חלק קטן של הפעילות, יש אנשים שמתחברים ויש אנשים שלא מתחברים, בגלל זה אנחנו מציעים את כל האפיקים. אוקיי? אז מאוד חשוב להבין את זה. מבחינת פרויקטים קיימים, יש לנו פרויקטים בנפאל, הצוות של הטכניון מריץ כבר כמה שנים גם בנושא של אנרגיה חלופית של ביוגז, גם בנושא של פיתוח כלכלי של שמן ג'ינג'ר ופיתוח כלכלי סביב משאבים מקומיים שיש להם. נושאים של אנרגיה מתחדשת, אם זה רוח, אם זה סולרי, עם קהילות של בדואים בנגב. כל מה שקשור לפיתוח טכנולוגיה נאותה במעבדות, לא חייבים תמיד לצאת ישר לקהילות. לשבת במעבדה, בטכניון מפתחים טורבינות רוח קטנות, אחרי זה מתקינים אותם על הגגות בכל הפקולטות, תלכו לשם, תראו את כל הטורבינות, תדעו שזה מהנדסים ללא גבולות, לבדוק איך הטכנולוגיה עובדת. הראייה היא שבעתיד נוכל להשתמש בזה בפרויקטים. אוקיי? אז אנחנו לא רוצים את המאנסטרס הגדולים אולי של הטורבינות, אנחנו רוצים משהו קטן ופשוט וזמין לקהילות, אז אנחנו מפתחים את זה לפעמים בעצמנו. ופרויקטים אחרים שקורים היום זה פרויקטים בירושלים, במזרח ירושלים ובאגן הקדרון, שזה האמת פרויקטים שהסניף פה בתל אביב, 2 מתוכם לקח כפרויקטים מתחילים, רק מכיוון שהפרויקט היה קיים, זה עניין את האנשים שרצו להתחיל, היה כסף, ואני אדבר כמה דקות על הפרויקטים האלה. תומר ואולגה פה? תומר, אולגה, אני לא רואה את אולגה. כן, כן, טוב. אז מפאת קוצר הזמן אנחנו נעשה ממש, אבל תומר פה והוא המוביל של הפרויקט של הביוגז וטיהור מי ביוב בג'בל מוקבר, שזה במזרח ירושלים. יש שם הזרמה ישירה של 100 בתים של שפכים לאגן הקדרון. זו בעיה מאוד גדולה, רחבה, אנחנו לא מנסים לפתור אותה, יש חכמים וטובים וגדולים מאיתנו שמנסים כבר הרבה שנים לפתור את זה, אבל מה שברור לנו זה שאם אנחנו נצליח להביא לשם פתרונות זמינים, זולים ופשוטים, שבעצם ימנעו את ההזרמה הישירה מהבתים אל אגן הקדרון, אנחנו נפחית את הבעיה. אוקיי? לא נטפל בבעיה הקיימת היום, אבל נעזור לאורך זמן לפתור אותה. חברנו לחמולה של 7 משפחות, שגם מגדלות עזים, ואמרנו, ויש להם צינור שהולך ישירות לקדרון. אנשים שלא מכירים, הקדרון זורם מהעיר העתיקה עד לים המלח, אוקיי? עובר בשטחים גם של ישראל וגם של הרשות. אמרנו, האם אנחנו יכולים למנוע מהחמולה הזאת להזרים שפכים לקדרון? יש שם מקור עזי, יש מקור של קקי של עזי מצוין שהם מגדלים. אמרנו, בואו נראה מה אנחנו יכולים לעשות פה שהוא קצת אחר. אז הצוות בעצם עובד על מערכת ביוגז שבה לוקחים פסולת אורגנית, שפכים, כל מה שקשור לגללים של עזים, חיות אחרות, והופכים אותה לאנרגיה זמינה שיכולה להוות אנרגיה לדוגמה כגז בישול. אוקיי? אז אם אנחנו יכולים לקחת את הפסולת הזאת, את השפכים, לטפל בהם, למנוע את הבעיה במקור, ולא רק זה, גם לעשות איזשהו משהו כלכלי מזה. במקרה הזה, לחסוך להם את בלוני הגז לבישוי. או להביא מים מתוארים, שאחרי זה הם יוכלו להשקות איתם את הגינות, במקום לשלם חשבון מים. אוקיי? אז זאת הראייה. הצוות שקם בעצם מורכב גם מאנשי מקצוע, מבוגרים של הטכניון שסיימו את התוכנית, היו פעילים ב-EWB ועכשיו הם מהנדסים בחברות שונות, וסטודנטים מרחובות, סטודנטים מתל אביב, ובעצם ביצעו סקירת שטח, עברו לחמולה, למדו מערכות שונות שיכולות להיות מתאימות שם, ובעצם עכשיו עובדים על תכנון מערכת, הותקנה מערכת למדידה של הזרם של המים, כמה בכלל זרימה יש שם כדי לדעת לתכנן את הגודל המתאים של המערכת, והחבר'ה היום נמצאים בעצם בתכנון מתקדם של המערכת, ואנחנו מקווים שלקראת, לוחות זמנים פה קצת לא מעודכנים, אבל שלקראת ככה אוגוסט-ספטמבר תתחיל הבנייה של המערכת. כמובן שיש שם המון מורכבות של פוליטיקה ושל התרבות ושל כל הנושא של מה יהיה ואיך זה ישפיע ובנייה חוקית ולא חוקית. כל הדברים, כל מה שאנחנו מכירים מהאיכסה של היומיום שלנו קיימים שם, אנחנו לא יכולים להתעלם משם, אבל אנחנו מנסים לעקוף את זה בצורות חכמות ולהביא באמת את הפתרון, והמטרה היא לא כל כך המערכת עצמה, כי ה-65 אנשים האלה לא יפתרו את הבעיה שבקדרון, אבל לפתוח את זה כמרכז פיילוט, שאנשים יכולים לבוא וללמוד איך הטכנולוגיה עובדת, ואחרי זה לחזור כל אחד לחמול שלו, ואולי להתקין, ולראות איך אנחנו מוזילים את העלויות של המערכת האלה, והופכים אותה למשהו שאנשים באמת יכולים להשקיע, ושווה להם להשקיע כי הם יקבלו חזרה את הגז, או כי הם ימנעו את חשבון החשמל, או יוכלו לגדל דברים שאחרי זה הם יוכלו למכור. וכולי. פרויקט נוסף הוא פרויקט של הקמת מרכז הדמיה טכנולוגי סביבתי בבית ספר של עיריית ירושלים ומשרד החינוך במזרח ירושלים של ילדים עם בית ספר לחינוך מיוחד. יש שם צוות מורים מדהים שכבר עוסק בנושאים סביבתיים ורצה בעצם לעשות שם משהו יותר גדול. התחברנו עם כמה קבוצות, עם ארגון סביבתי שעושה חינוך סביבתי, ובעצם אנחנו מקימים שם מרכז שמראה, עושה הדמיה של טכנולוגיות קטנות. לילדים אין קולר, אין להם איפה לשתות בחצר כשהם משחקים, הם צריכים להיכנס כל פעם חזרה למבנה, לשים שם קולר, אבל שבמקום שהקולר יעבוד על חשמל, הוא יעבוד על מערכת סולארית. ואז אנחנו לוקחים את זה ומלמדים את הילדים איך עובדת מערכת סולארית, איך אנחנו מהשמש יוצרים חשמל בקיר, אוקיי? אז לשלב את זה בכל התהליכים החינוכיים, ולא רק זה, אחרי זה להביא את ההורים שילמדו איך המערכות האלה עובדות, אוקיי? החבר'ה האלה עם הרבה אנרגיות, חלקם עם ככה אנרגיות שהמורים לא יודעים מה לעשות איתם, בואו נשים הפרעות קשב, כל מה שקשור לזה, המורים אמרו, תנו לנו משהו שהילדים יכולים ככה קצת להוציא אנרגיה. אמרנו, מה נעשה? אופניים שבהם הם ילמדו איך להעביר אנרגיה מכנית לאנרגיה חשמלית, שתיתן להם קצת מוזיקה בהפסקות, אוקיי? הם גם יבינו מה המשמעות של כמה אנרגיה צריך להשקיע בשביל לייצר את האנרגיה, וגם יעזור בהוצאת המרץ ולעשות להם שם משהו נחמד. אבל בשביל זה הם ילמדו איך אנרגיה מכנית תעבור לאנרגיה חשמלית, והם יבינו כמה אוכל הם צריכים או כמה קלוריות הם צריכים בשביל שהם יוכלו להפעיל את האופניים, בשביל שהמוזיקה תפעל וכו'. אז המטרה היא לשלב פה תהליכים חינוכיים, תהליכים טכנולוגיים, שגם מתקשרים לחינוך סביבתי. יש צוות, אולגה מובילה את הצוות הזה, יש חבר'ה שככה התלבשו כראשי צוותים, כי זה הרבה פרויקטים קטנים, כל 2-3 אנשים לוקחים להם פרויקט אחד ועובדים עליו, כרגע אנחנו בתכנון, והמטרה היא שעד סוף, ממש בקרוב, יוקמו 2-3 מערכות, ובשנה הבאה נמשיך עם זה. הבאנו ארגונים נוספים לשם, ארגון שהולך לעשות גג ירוק וארגון שהקים מערכת לאיסוף מי גשמים שהבית ספר יכול לשמש. זאת אומרת, העבודה היא לא רק שלנו, חלק מהחשיבות של העבודה זה להביא עוד ארגונים שייכנסו לעבודה איפה שאנחנו או לא יכולים לעזור, או יש ארגונים שעושים את זה יותר טוב, אז למה להשקיע משאבים כפולים? זה דוגמה של חבר'ה הלכו ולמדו איך אפשר להקים את המערכת הזאת של האופניים, אז זה משהו שבתכנון ראשוני, ואם זה ללכת ולהשיג את האופניים הישנים ואת כל החלקים שצריך ולהרכיב איזשהו פרוטוטייפ ולראות איך זה עובד וכמה חשמל אפשר לייצר ולעשות את התכנון, ואחרי זה כמובן התקנה בבית ספר. אוקיי? פרופסור ריין שהזכיר בהתחלה את הפרויקט בטנזניה, יש פה מישהו מהפרויקט של טנזניה? אז הפרויקט הזה הוא פרויקט ממש בשלבי תכנון ראשוניים, זוהתה קהילה, זוהה אזור בטנזניה, ואנחנו עכשיו בעצם רוצים לנסוע לשם לעשות אססמנט ראשוני. אנחנו יודעים שיש שם בעיה גדולה של רעילות של פלואור, יתר פלואור במים, ובעצם החבר'ה שהתחילו לעבוד על הפרויקט גם הסתכלו על מגוון הפתרונות שיש לתיאור בעיות של פלואור, או לחלופין מה אפשר לעשות אם אי אפשר יהיה לתאר, ואז זה אומר לחפש מקורות מים אחרים אולי נקיים. אוקיי? אז הצוות השקיע הרבה זמן בלהבין את הבעיה, להסתכל על האזור, להשיג איזשהו קונטקט מקומי בקהילות האלה, לבחון אפשרויות, ועכשיו אנחנו מנסים לגייס כסף על מנת שנוכל לנסוע לאססמנט או לסקר ראשוני, שבאמת להתחבר לקהילה, להבין את הצרכים, את הסדרי העדיפויות, ומשם להמשיך. אוקיי? אני רוצה לסיים בזה שבאמת, וברנרד ככה ניסה גם להגיד את זה, הרבה מהפרויקטים זה הרבה מעבר לחוויה של הלבנות, ולהקים ולדיזיין ולכתוב על הרזומה, עשיתי כזה פרויקט או בניתי כזאת מערכת. החוויות שמקבלים, ואלה תמונות בעיקר, אני עבדתי הרבה שנים בפרו, אז זה ככה תמונות מהזיכרונות שלי מפרו, אבל הרבה מהעבודה הרבה מהחוויות זה האינטראקציה. האינטראקציה לשחק כדורגל עם הילדים בבית ספר אחרי הצהריים, ולאכול אוכל שאף פעם לא אכלתם, ולראות מנהגים שאף פעם לא ראיתם, והחברויות שנוצרות עם האנשים בקהילות, זה דברים שלא שוכחים אותם ולוקחים אותם לכל החיים, והרבה פעמים משנים לנו את החיים. אבל שוב, מהניסיון מארצות הברית, אנחנו יודעים שאנשים שינו את המקצוע, את מה שהם רצו לעשות, אוקיי? חשבו, אני אלך לעבוד בחברת ייעוץ גדולה, בקיוביקים, אני אשב, אני אתכנן את העולם, ואחרי שנחשפו לפרויקטים האלה, עשו 180 מעלות, חיפשו לעבוד בארגונים ללא מטרות רווח, חיפשו לעבוד בחברות שדווקא מנסות להיכנס לשווקים האלה וכולי, שינו את דעותיהם הפוליטיות, שינו את מקום מגוריהם וכולי וכולי וכולי. אז הפרויקטים האלה יש להם השפעה עצומה על כל אחד מאיתנו, way מעבר למה שאנחנו משפיעים על הקהילות. מה שאני מציעה זה מגרש שמאוד מאוחר, יש בחוץ דפים של הרשמה אם אתם מעוניינים להשתתף בפעילות, יש את גיל, יש את תומר, יש אותי, יש את החבר'ה מטנזניה, אם מעניין אתכם אתם מוזמנים לבוא, לשאול עוד שאלות. מישהו שאל על הכספים, אנחנו מזמן, הכספים זה בעיה, אנחנו משקיעים בזה המון משאבים, אבל זה לא הבעיה העיקרית שלנו כבר. הבעיה העיקרית שלנו זה למצוא את החבר'ה שמוכנים לעבוד ועם הברק בעיניים שככה רוצים להשקיע וגם מוכנים לעשות את כל התהליך, לא רק את אני רוצה לבוא לעצב מערכת סולארית ולמצוא את ולעשות וי על זה שיש לי דיזיין של מערכת סולארית, אלא באמת לעשות את הגיוס כספים ואת התכנון של הפרויקט ואת הפולו-אפ ואת הללמד ולחנך ולא רק את החלק הטכני. אנחנו מוצאים תפקידים לכולם, מי שיכול לתת שעה בחודש למי שנותן 10 שעות ביום. אנחנו מוצאים תפקידים לכולם ואני אשמח מאוד לראות עוד ועוד פנים חדשות. יש לנו ביום שישי הקרוב את הכנס הראשון של מהנדסים ללא גבולות ישראל, שבו בעצם אנחנו אוספים אנשים מכל הסניפים, זה יהיה ביפו, יש, אם תעשו גוגל awb.org.il, יש שם את הפרטים, ואצל גיל יש גם, והפצנו את זה בכל זה, אם אתם עדיין אפשר להירשם עד יום שלישי לאירוע, זה יהיה כבר משהו יותר לעומק, עם הרצאות על נושאים שונים, עם סדנאות, אם זה סדנאות על סולר קוקרס ועל איך לעשות ניהול פרויקטים ובנייה בבוטס, והרצאות יותר על אספקטים תרבותיים בפרויקטים האלה ועל איזה גיידליינס אנחנו כארגון נותנים לפרויקטים. אז חבילה נחמדה, זה יום, זה ככה 3/4 יום מ-9 בבוקר עד 4 אחרי הצהריים. זהו, אז שוב אם אתם מעוניינים, כל הפרטים קיימים. תודה על ההקשבה ועל הזמן הארוך ויאללה, קדימה לראות אתכם בפרויקטים.